This is the Reluctant Leader podcast, created because, through no fault of your own, you've become one. I'm your host, Mark Terrell, and I know how it feels when you're getting ground down by people issues, constantly firefighting and wondering how on earth you ended up here. In each episode, I invite a guest to discuss a topic and give you 3, sometimes more, top tips that will help you in your leadership role. They are experts in the field, and you'll find out why they do what they do and what took them down that path. For more resources to help you on your leadership journey, check out thereluctantleader.academy, where you'll find details of how to join the Reluctant Leader Success Path. So let's see who's in the hot seat this week. Today I'm talking to Philippa Constable. Philippa has years of experience and research into how people can get the best out of business networking. Having been a member of business development schemes and networking organisations herself, she wanted more than what was on offer. She developed a format that's proved successful for hundreds of men and women, whether in business for the first time or with years of experience. Philippa has successfully written and run her own workshops and training in business networking skills, teaching business owners and managers how to network with authenticity and get great results. She believes that most people don't understand what real networking is truly about, and is on a mission to educate people on how to network effectively. Hope you enjoy this chat we had about real networking, and I'll catch you all on the other side. Philippa, welcome to the Reluctant Leader podcast.
Hello, Mark. Thank you for having me.
I've been looking forward to this as I've been part of your network for some time, and I'm a big fan. But before we get into that nitty-gritty and talk about what we're going to talk about, which is networking, I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everybody, and that is, why do you do what you do? And what was the pivotal moment that took you down this path?
So, interestingly, why do I do what I do? Because I didn't set out to become the leader of a business networking organisation. I kind of did do it by accident, but I'll tell you a bit more about the pivotal moment because I think that will explain that bit really. I was networking back in 2015. 2005, what am I talking about? 14 years ago now, a long time, for a business that I bought, which was a franchise business. And when I bought the business, it literally had 0 clients, and I needed to get out there and network and build up that business from scratch. So I was introduced to networking and spent a couple of years building that business, and 80% of my business and clients came through my networking. But I wasn't really enjoying the networking. I did it and I actually saw it as a bit of a necessary evil, and it wasn't something that I looked forward to. And there were elements of the networking that I was doing that I disliked. And it was over a lunch with a friend, and we were chatting, and if I'm honest, we were having a good old whinge about all our networking and what we didn't like. And then we talked about what we would do differently, what we would like to see happen in a meeting, how we felt networking could or should work. And then my friend Hermana said to me, well, let's do it. And I was the one that was resisting, to be honest. I said, well, you've got to be joking. I haven't got time for this. I'm running my business. And anyway, she persuaded me, and we had our very first women's meeting in Weston-super-Mare in 2005, and invited everybody we knew, and 45 people turned up at our first meeting. So we just thought, oh, wow, there's something here. And so we ran another meeting, and then before we knew it, we were running them regularly. So we decided to formulate Women Mean Biz, and it just started from there, from humble beginnings, from one little group, which was so interesting. But obviously what we were doing was what people wanted. So that was a pivotal moment that sort of took me on the path. And now I then eventually sold that franchise business, because a few years later I found myself spending more time working within the network that we started to grow than I was on my own business, because I absolutely loved getting to know the individual people in the network and seeing them develop, seeing them flourish and grow, and being able to help them on that journey and support them. And I found it a really inspirational place. I found myself And I get inspired by others. I get inspired by their stories, by why they do what they do. And I feel I'm in such a fantastic position, surrounding myself with all these amazing women, and now men and women with We Mean Biz, on their own individual business journeys. And that's kind of why I do what I do, just because I'm so inspired by the people that I interact with.
That's a really, really good story. And you hear that quite often, don't you? People set out to do something, and actually, because something happens to them and they actually get inspired by something, suddenly realize, actually, this is what I should be doing. And It's great to hear your story is similar to that. So you mentioned that you were having a bit of a moan before you started your networking about how networking wasn't really working for you, what you didn't enjoy about it. So what were those things that you didn't particularly like, and how have you addressed them, and how you set up how your networks work?
So the first thing I felt in the network that I was part of was that it felt quite forced in many ways, and there were a lot of rules. And one of the things I recognised in myself is when I went into business for myself as an entrepreneur, I'd left the corporate world behind, and I'm quite creative, and I wanted to make up my own decisions and I was in charge of my own destiny. And so then to go networking in an environment where I was being told what to do all the time and had to tick a lot of boxes, kind of felt there was a jar there for me. And I didn't feel that the relationship building was as genuine as I would have liked it to have been. So that was one of the things. The other thing I found that was I was a mother of two quite small children at the time. No, they're now grown up and left the nest. But back then, and all the networking was at breakfast time. And for 2 years, my parents looked after my kids in the mornings, and I was networking every single week. So it was quite a commitment for them to help support me. And I felt very fortunate that I had them there to help me. But there came a day when my dad turned around and said to me, Philly, how much longer are you doing this networking thing for? Because, it was quite a big commitment for them, taking my kids to school every single week, and they would go and stay the night before. So there's a lot of preparation each week to get me out there networking. And I kind of felt, well, my time is running out. The goodwill was there, but, it was a big ask. So there wasn't anything at lunchtime. And I just thought, well, networking is part of working on your business. Why should this not be built into your day? And so that was the other thing. I just thought there's nothing out there at lunchtime. So there must be other people like me who are going to find it difficult to go to a breakfast meeting. So immediately there's a lot of people that are actually locked out of actually being able to go networking. So that was another thing. And then there were other things that I also noticed, and I just thought, this is not for me. I want to find something that was much more authentic. Hopefully that's what we have created now in WMB. But yeah, there's a couple of examples for you.
I think what you've created is unique, and I was actually the first time I encountered your networks was when you had Women Mean Biz, and at the time I was looking for opportunities to speak, and for some reason I don't know why it just popped up somewhere that you were looking at the time, and I think it was on Twitter, and I just replied. Thinking, I don't know whether they have male speakers, and luckily you did, and that was my first experience. And I must admit, the first time I went to the meeting, I thought, I really like this format. This is really, really comfortable. It feels really nice. But unfortunately, at the time, I didn't fit in because I was a woman. I wasn't a woman because obviously you only had the one network. So I was really pleased when you started the We Mean Biz network as well. So one of the things I was going to ask you was, do you see a difference in the way that women and men tend to network? Is there something that stands out particularly about the way that each sort of sex does that?
Yeah, I think there's a very, very subtle difference between the two. My observations are, I think men are very deliberate when they make a decision to network. For them, it is generally really important that they see tangible outcomes, and they measure their return on their investment by the referrals they receive, introductions and things like that.
Mm.
Women, when they go networking, I think look at a slightly different picture, possibly a slightly wider picture, in that they're looking for support, and they see that and value that equally as much as they do the introductions and referrals. Because I think that they look for the relationship first and foremost, whereas I think for men, I think they realise the relationship's important, but that's not necessarily at the top of their list. Does that make sense? So
yeah, absolutely. Yes, it does.
Agree with
Absolutely.
that, Mark, being a guy or not?
Yes, no, I think that's spot on. I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's one of the reasons why I liked the way you set up Women in Biz, was obviously because of that, because you had that, you knew what women want from network. And I think what you've successfully done is actually brought that ethos into, that mixed world, which is great, because sometimes when you bring in a concept from one to the other, actually, it doesn't actually, fit in sometimes. It doesn't really work, but you managed to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
So I think before we carry on, it'd be a good idea just to run through the format. You've mentioned it's at lunchtime, but what other elements have you built in that are really important?
Yeah, so what was it? Can you just repeat the question? Is it what are the elements of the actual meeting?
Yes,
or the
that's right. What's the makeup
itself
of the meeting? Yeah.
Yeah. So, we have a first half an hour, and people arrive at 12 o'clock and they mingle. They can grab a tea or coffee, but it's an opportunity to catch up with your fellow members and meet the guests and speak to the speaker, and generally sort of freely mingle and chat. We then sit down at 12:30, and then the next hour and a half is it's like a boardroom style meeting, as you know, but for the benefit of our listeners. The first half, the next half an hour is the 1 minute round. So that's the opportunity for everyone to introduce themselves and talk about what help they're looking for, or referrals they might be seeking. The second part of the meeting, we have two speakers. A member would talk about their business for 10 minutes, and that's what we call Member of the Month slot. And for the group to really focus on that member, to understand their business in more depth and explore and find ways in which they can support that member, in particular that month. So that's a great slot. But in that slot, we encourage our members to really share a lot about their story, their journey, what things do they do when they're not at work, because it's all about people. We then have a business surgery, and that's where a roundtable discussion takes place. Somebody in the room may have a challenge or a problem, or something that's going on in their business they could do with some outside advice or help, or just do some brainstorming around. So it's called the business surgery because we're putting it out on the table to see if we can sort of find a solution, at least share our experiences. Somebody in the room may well have actually had the same issue themselves, and that's really powerful. And we found some really great outcomes from that and conversations that have taken place. And we often find that it's very easy to pretend everything's great in business. And I'm a big advocate of encouraging and helping people to be open and share their vulnerability, because very often one person may have a problem they've got in their business. There's someone else sat in the room who's got exactly the same problem, but maybe too afraid to say anything out loud. And as soon as someone shares something, it's almost like it's amazing the response that we get around the table, and the level of support people have for one another. So I think it's, for me, the power is in showing that vulnerability and just being open and honest about what's going on for yourself, because we can't help you unless you share that kind of stuff. So that's the business surgery. And then we have a keynote speaker in every meeting, and you've been one of our fabulous keynote speakers. But those are people who are in business who have great content and a strong message to share. They've got experience in business, and generally the idea is that they're there to inspire and motivate, share ideas, and talk about something that they are particularly passionate about, or they have expertise in an area that they can share with the group. The idea is that everybody in the room has some real takeaways, things that they can implement in their business. If nothing else, stir up some ideas for them, come away sort of feeling that they've actually got some real value out of the meeting, as well as just the actual networking itself. So that's that section of the meeting. And then at the end, we have instead of a referral round, we have what we call a thanks for the biz round. So for us, it's all about gratitude and showing that gratitude to others. So it's thanking others for help and support they've received that month, any introductions or referrals they've had. And they can also, publicly sort of say, I'd love to have a one-to-one with you and you around the room or around the table. And, it helps people's accountability as well doing that. So that's the thanks for the biz around, and then we sort of do a bit of a wrap up, and that's the meeting. But that's not where the networking stops. That's just that's the once a month meeting, and then as you and I know well, it's what we do outside of the meeting is what really counts.
And I think that's the key thing, isn't it? When we go to the meeting, it's only the start of the process. In many cases, it's actually where you might meet someone for the first time, but actually to get to know them. Yes, you've mentioned the member slot, which is really 10 minutes is really important to get to know the person as a person, not just about a business, which is a great slot. But it's also outside the meetings, it's having meetings that are one-to-ones that you can develop and, explore. And I know one of the big the ethos within your network is about, building alliances and partnerships and working together. Is that seems to be, flourishing from what I see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really big on collaboration, Mark, and I think it's absolutely kind of critical. And I think we're stronger working together, and it's finding ways and exploring and being creative about how can that work. We're both talking to the same target market audience. How could we work closer together? What can we do to support each other's businesses? And if you can formulate something that is actually, a partnership structure of some sort, or find ways to introduce each other to each other's clients, and that's where the powerful collaboration comes about. But that's for me the exciting bit of networking is discovering those amazing relationships that can really take to another level.
Yeah, and you've mentioned the keynote, which is about learning from others, which is a key thing. I think we all need to learn from people's stories and how they've developed and what they've achieved and what they do now. But one of the other things that you're quite big on, and this comes out in what you call the power groups, is actually bringing people together to actually almost develop within a speciality, and that's something that you've developed quite well, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. I mean, I know some networks have this lockout policy where they don't have two people in the same industry in the same group. I absolutely think that's crazy personally, because I have seen so much business done with two people doing exactly the same thing. And the power groups is just that. It is so powerful to put people together who are doing the same thing. So we've got a creative marketing media power group, one in the legal, financial services and accounting group. In Women Mean Biz, we have a lot more. It's a slightly bigger network at the moment, but Women Biz is certainly catching up, that's for sure. But we have about 6 different power groups in Women Mean Biz. So we've got one for trainers and coaches, one for the wedding industry, one for people who want to do keynote speaking, health and wellness, that's a really large power group. And these are just fantastic to sort of see people across the network come together. And it is purely to find collaboration and ways they can support each other's businesses. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and also the big message here is not just about networking. It's about actually learning. It's actually learning from others. And you have a way of, where you actually put things on at your HQ and other venues to bring people together for workshops and different specialities, where you bring people in, just talk about, say, social media, where they can focus on how they can make the most of that. So what I feel from network is it's not just about networking, it's actually learning and developing. That's an important part of what you do, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've recognised is that people will grow. They need to grow themselves personally, and they need to grow their business. And I think that the networking environment is brilliant from learning from each other, peer-to-peer learning in the meetings themselves. But yes, we do workshops because we recognise that for people to be successful, they need to be continually working on their own skills. And also, business trends are changing all the time, and keeping on top of everything, like social media as a great example, nothing stays still for very long, and how do we as business owners kind of keep on top of that and know what's the next thing that we need to be sort of sitting up and listening about. And it was the beginning of last year, obviously GDPR, that was a big thing. Tax going digital is another big thing. There's always something that as business owners we need to consistently be looking at and making sure that we understand all the implications of these things that happen that will affect our business. So, that's part of what we do, is actually helping business owners get a grip with that sort of thing, as well as, personally develop, because if they spend time on themselves, then they have a much better chance of being successful and making more money, which is what we all would like to see.
Yes, yeah. And that's a good lead-in, actually. I was going to ask you about the consistency of making sure that you do it regularly, because one of the things that I notice is that people sort of turn up and then you don't see them again, and then they might turn up again and then you don't see them again. And that really, as far as networking, it's not really effective, is it? I know, I'm pretty sure that you're going to agree with that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's a learning curve for some people. I don't think they just understand quite what it is to start with. So when you first start out, you're probably not quite sure what it's about. And I think, eventually sometimes the penny drops, sometimes it doesn't. When you get some people that are sent out to network for their company, so they're representing their business. And when I speak to because as you know, I try and speak to everybody that comes to our network to follow up with everyone. But the biggest thing I get is that their company won't support them with paying for a membership, but they send them out to network, and they're allowed to go networking. They can network anywhere they like, but they won't pay for anything. And I just feel that's so short-sighted, because they're just splashing around in the shallows and they're not really building relationships. They're going to lots of networking events, but I personally don't feel that is the best strategy, best way forward. You might be lucky and by chance happen to meet somebody who happens to be looking for what you do in that moment in time. But that is quite rare. And, great if that happens, but you're relying on luck with that. Whereas this is much more about, building deep relationships with people over a long, long period of time, so that you're not just looking to do business with the people that you meet in the room, you're tapping into their network and the clients and the people that they know. And it's all about connecting others with your database of people that you're connected to. And that's where the most valuable introductions can come from. And I would never really introduce somebody that I've only just met once or twice in that sort of scenario. It just doesn't work for me at all.
No, you're taking a big risk, aren't you? If you do that and you've only met them a couple of times, then you don't really get to know them in that time, unless you spent an awful lot of time with them, that is. But what you described there is typical, like when someone's been sent out from a large organisation. It's almost just like a tick box exercise, isn't it? You've gone networking, you've come back. How did you get on? Did you find any clients? And it's almost like yes or no. Oh, well, okay. Well, maybe that's not the right network for us. Then we'll try somewhere else. And that's the way I see so many having no particular structure. And it doesn't work. I'm sure it doesn't work unless, like you say, unless they're very lucky on the first time you walk in and there's the ideal person that wants what you want.
Well, they may think it works, but they've got nothing to compare it to, Mark. So unless they've actually done networking in the proper sense, then they really don't know what they're missing out. But the other thing is some people just don't get that it takes time. So I sometimes have found people that have networked for, say, a year, and then they move on to another network and join another network group for a year, and then they might move on to another network group. So they kind of move around. And again, I think that is you're in danger of kind of alienating the people you've built the relationships by doing that, because you're not showing a really truly long-term commitment to the whole process of building those deep relationships. And I think that's a mistake that I see as well in some people. And it can take a year. Isn't long actually, and you've got to look much bigger at the bigger picture. And I think the best relationships happen in year 2 and then sometimes in year 3. And I've got members who admittedly openly admit that they were umming and ahhing about renewing into year 2. They did renew, and then 6 months later have said, I'm really glad I did, because now I'm building momentum, and now the relationships I built in the first year are really coming to fruition. But it's just taken time.
Yeah, and I think the thing that the people that aren't really getting success from networking, what they really need to do is actually get some training about how to network. And I know that's something that you do, provide that part of the network, and actually encourage people to not just network, but actually develop their skills so that they are a better networker, so they can refer better and just ultimately, get better results from the time they're spending.
Yeah, I mean, there were 2 reasons why I decided to do networking skills workshops for the network, for everybody that joins, and anyone else, actually. It's open to anybody, actually. One was to help them with a real strategy to get the very best results out of the networking. But secondly was to help with their mindset around networking, which what has created the culture that we have within our network, so that when you walk in a room, you get this overwhelming feeling that everyone is really there to support and help you. And that's quite a hard thing to achieve, actually, but it's one comment that most people say about our network is how welcoming and how warm and how open and friendly everybody is, because we talk about how important it is that you walk into the room and you check what's going on in your mind. And instead of thinking, what's in it for me, it's who can I help today? And it's as simple as that. Who can I help today? And having that ethos and that approach positions you in a very different way.
Yes, very powerful. Absolutely. I definitely yes, I agree with that. I can get my words out. So yeah, but we're sort of, painting the picture of actually what networking is really about. It's about, networking for the fact that you are gaining people that you are potentially could work with, or they might want to work with you. But not only that, you can actually refer people that have got to know, and you, with confidence, you can actually say, I know this person and they are, they've got a great reputation, and here's their details. And it's when other people start referring you, then you know that you've actually started to, get your networking right.
Yeah. And I think a powerful referral is when you can confidently refer someone and endorse them and talk about them in a way that really helps sell them into that person. So, I've made mistakes when I've referred people too soon, and I've fallen flat on my face with it. So I know how it can go very badly wrong if you don't have a true understanding of that person and what they can deliver. Yeah. And so, it's really important to have that trust and that confidence in the person that you're referring, that they are basically going to not let your client down. They're going to do a fantastic job, and your client's going to come back to you and say, thank you so much for that introduction. I know where to come if I need help with anything else. And that's what's important. It's about positioning yourself as someone who's also very connected, and people keep coming back to you as well.
Yeah. Great. So sadly, our time is running out, and we've got to that point where those magical top tips I'm going to ask for, those top 3 things that you think are key to anybody that is thinking about or is already networking to get better results from what they're doing.
Yeah, well, I think I'm just going to, I've actually got 4, if that's okay. I've added 1 in here, but a bonus tip. I think we've talked a lot about this already, but I'm just to reiterate, because these are really important. So my top tip number 1 is networking is all about relationships. Relax, be yourself. You can only build one relationship at a time. The one-to-ones that you do in between your meetings are absolutely critical. And it's in those meetings that you really get deep and truly understand what somebody else does. But it's not just having one-to-one. It's if you meet somebody who you really connect with, they're working with the same target market as you, meet with them again and again and again for one-to-one. So it's not just a one-off one-to-one meeting. Does that make sense? So it's one at a time, and patience. Keep patient and look for the long term. So all about the relationships. Second tip, focus on what you can do to help others first. Having the right attitude and be a shining example and show others how to be a great networker. And don't worry about what comes back, because sometimes it comes back from a place that you least expect it. Just do and focus on what you can do, because you can't control others anyway. I'm a great believer, what goes around comes around. Laws of attraction, all of that sort of stuff. And so that's my second tip. The third tip is be consistent, be persistent, and be visible. It's no good sort of coming and going and, just you've just got to turn up at every meeting. You've got to, if you've been trying to have a one-to-one with someone and they're not, maybe responding, just keep going, keep persisting, and just keep putting in the work. It is work, networking, and it does take some work. But, it's no good sitting back and waiting for people to come to you. You're the one that has to make it happen. And the fourth top tip is your message. Be really clear what it is that you do in your 60 seconds. Use a language that's got no jargon. Describe your clients, but don't use general terms. Be very specific about your target market audience. What makes you you? What makes you unique or different to your competitors? Be clear on your vision and your goals and what help you need. So at the end of your 60 seconds, you can end it with, I'm looking for an introduction to, and then whatever it is you need help with at that moment in time. But make it easy for others to help you. So there's 4 there. I hope that's
Brilliant.
Okay.
I'll let you off. That's 4 extra value. I was expecting a bit of extra value from you, Philippa. So fantastic. So
you're welcome.
Thank you so much for your time today. I know your time is precious at the moment, as lots going on in your world. So thank you again. I will hopefully catch you networking very soon.
Absolutely, Mark. Thanks very much as well. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to check out thereluctantleader.academy. And if you get a chance, please leave a review on whichever platform you have been listening. And also share the love by sharing the episode with someone who would benefit. Leadership is a choice. If you have the right mindset, know the process to follow, and the key skills to use at each point in the process, you have everything you need to leave a lasting legacy. Don't forget to put into action anything that has struck a chord in this episode. And until next time, be the best you can be.